What up, everyone? Jerky Jones here. I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm doing a book review. One, to review the book, and two, to brag to everyone that I fucking read a book. Woo! So, anyways, the book I read is Woody Allen's Side Effects. Um, Picked it up for $1 at the bookstore. It was in the bargain bin. Don't know anything about Woody Allen. I just know he married his stepdaughter. Never read any of his books, watched any of his movies even. Um, yeah. So, anyways, I bought it and I just finished reading it tonight, and it is one funny ass book. This book is hilarious. I can't believe it was there for $1. It's got 17 chapters. Each chapter is its own short story, its own unique story. So that makes it really easy to read because you don't have to remember a giant story and where you're at and stuff. And I read it over the course of like 2 weeks, just one chapter at a time, kind of, at work, and it was pretty easy to get through, and it was a lot of fun. Um, like I said, it's got 17 chapters, and like I'd say like 10 of the stories I probably really enjoyed. 7 of them were kind of a little had to drag through or whatever, but for the most part they were all pretty good. The humor is like, it's really, well, funny. It's hard to describe, man, but like it's very sharp, it's very dry. There's a lot of, I guess, Jewish humor because like a lot of his characters are Jewish in most of the stories, and I think Woody Allen is too. Um, they all, yeah. So that was kind of interesting, and that was fun to read actually because I don't know much about Jewish humor. But the book was written in 1975, so I just picture Woody Allen back in the day, like in New York City, you know, right in the heart of Brooklyn or Queens or something, right in this book. Um, and it is an old book, so it's like, it's not the same as today. There's no current references. There's a lot of references from back in the day. It's 44 years old, this book, so, but it's still really funny. Um, so I'm gonna read, like, here's an example from the very first story. It's called Remembering Needleman. This is the first paragraph. I'm gonna read it to you because it's funny. This is the kind of humor the book has. So it says, "It has been 4 weeks, and it is still hard for me to believe Sandor Needleman is dead. I was present at the cremation, and at his son's request, brought the marshmallows, but few of us could think of anything but our pain." Another story, like, it's like, who brings marshmallows to a funeral and a cremation and stuff, you know? That's the kind of the funny thing. Another story is called Confessions of a Burglar, and it starts, it says, "Following are excerpts from the soon-to-be published memoirs of Virgil Ives, who is currently serving the first of 4 consecutive 99-year sentences for various felonies. Mr. Ives plans on working with children when he gets out." And then it goes, "Sure, I stole. Why not? Where I grew up, you had to steal to eat. Then you had to steal the tip. Lots of guys stole 15%, but I always stole 20, which made me a big favorite among the waiters." And it's just silly. But that one's is like a story about a burglar, and he tells like the story of himself and how he used to rob and whatever. And it's all silly, like, and dry and whatnot. It reminds me of like British humor, like, you know, or Kids in the Hall from the Canadian guys, Kids in the Hall, that show. If you ever watched it, or what else? Kind of Saturday Night Live type stuff too. That kind of humor, George Carlin esque, a little smarter, a little less crude, but just silly in that sense. One of the stories I really liked, I think it's called the Kugelmass episode. It's about this guy this university professor who's like tired of his wife, tired of his life, you know, just bored. He meets this magician who can transport him to any world that a book is. So he puts a book and the man into a box, and he transports them to the world of the book. So the guy does this, and he goes back to like 1700 France and meets some princess, and, you know, falls in love and visits her over and over and over, and he ends up bringing her back to, like, you know, 1970 New York or whatever. And when he brings her back, like he's got to hide her from his wife and put her up in a fancy hotel, and he's like running out of money, and she's like meeting other men who are offering her jobs and acting gigs, and she's getting real lazy and bitching all the time and whatnot, and he's trying to like hide her, and it just goes to shit, right? And so he sends her back through the magician, and a couple months later he's like, I really miss her, and he wants to go back one more time. So the magician's like, sure, hop on in. And he taps the box, and instead of the usual noise, it like blows up and goes on fire and stuff. And the guy, he gets transported not to like 1700 France, but he gets transported to this barren desert with these gigantic spider creatures chasing after him. But instead of spiders, they're Spanish words. And he got transported into like a Spanish dictionary instead. Yeah, so things like that. That one was a funny one. That one was like 20 pages, 25 pages, something like that. It was just funny seeing the guy's life fall apart. And then it's not even a happy ending. It's like a horrible ending. Like it's a nightmare. But it's the guy who got what he deserved, and so that's kind of funny. There was a lot of good stories. The Shallowest Man. Oh, there was a story about this guy who meets the like girl of his dreams, right? And he ends up meeting her family, and he ends up falling in love with the mother instead, and and so he hangs around the mom all the time. He's trying to really get to know the mom. He takes her out for drinks all the time. And they go out and they become like best friends, And the mom is like, "Oh, you're just like my son." And he's like, "Oh no." So he's like, "I'm gonna cut it off." So he cuts it off, and then over the months, his wife, his dream wife, is like, "I can't have sex with you anymore. You remind me of my brother." And he's like, "No," and he ruined his relationship with her. And anyways, I won't spoil it, but he ends up hooking up with someone else, and some shenanigans follow and whatever. But it's just a crazy love story that ends up really like twisted. It was super funny. Anyways, 9.5 out of 10. If you ever have a chance, pick up a Woody Allen book. I haven't read them all. It's the only one I've read. So pick up this one, and you won't be disappointed. Jerky Jones Review. Peace.